Hi, welcome to Albuquerque's Iconic Businesses, presented by Moji Cinema. My name is Stacy Sacco. I'm the previous director of the UNM Small Business Institute, as well as I taught entrepreneurial studies for the past 20 years at UNM Anderson School of Management. And I'm currently a site mentor at UNM Rainforest Innovation Center downtown. So I'm very excited to talk with Bert Parnall from Parnall Law Firm about how he got started and some of his best business practices. So let's get started.
Everybody's life is an adventure. My adventure was an unusual one. I had the opportunity through my family to travel quite a bit. We went to several countries in Africa. I saw some pretty vivid images at that young age. Those vivid images give me a contrast in how I understand how people live, what justice is or can be. For instance, when I was in Ethiopia and I was 4 years old and we were in traffic, I was in the back seat and I was eating an orange. It was hot, so I had my hand hanging out the car window with the orange in it. And all of a sudden, another boy came by, ran up and took the orange from my hand and ran away. I was left dumbfounded, and to me it felt very wrong. And I expressed my disappointment, my anger to my parents in the front seat, but my parents said, "Maybe that boy needed that orange more than you did."
This situation with the orange sparked a conversation about justice and how one had to be careful about making judgments too quickly about what was right and what was wrong. He began to realize that it would be really very difficult, if not obscene, to judge that little boy when he was very likely just trying to survive. The number of years that he spent overseas, I think, did have a way of making him see how those different moral judgments could be looked at.
Throughout this time in these other countries, my father is teaching about the rule of law. Seeing him do that, speaking with him, understanding how important the rule of law is, gave me an inkling that I would be well suited for law.
Bert was my student in a number of ways. He showed up in my U.S. history class. He knew that I sponsored mock trial. Mock trial is a program that was set up by the Bar Association here, where you argued a case and then you competed with real judges judging you in real courtrooms. He volunteered to be in it. The team worked together, and they, of course, relied on him as a major support, which was natural. He's a leader who doesn't make his leadership obvious, but everyone wants to know what he thinks. But it was a system of equality. We were all the same. The team was the team, and that, in large part, was what he helped make.
Despite my family's background in the law and doing mock trial, and even having gone to law school, I wasn't yet certain about what direction my career should go. In part because my father wisely told me before I went to law school, go to law school and you can do anything. You don't have to be a lawyer. Given that understanding that it doesn't necessarily limit you to be a lawyer, I was also considering other things. At the time, I was doing yoga. I was considering going to India to learn from Patabi Joyce, Ashtanga Yoga, and return to America to continue teaching yoga. And at the same time, I was following up on opportunities to become a prosecutor. And so I was driving to Taos to do an interview with the DA's office. I had been listening to some audio tapes about the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is about a warrior named Arjuna. Arjuna is about to go to battle, and his cousins are on the other side of the battlefield, and he does not want to fight. And so the thrust of the story is the god Krishna engaging in an argument with Arjuna about his role, his destiny. Krishna tells him, "You are a warrior. You must fight." And Arjuna realizes, that's my role. I am a warrior. I must fight. And it's at that moment that I come over this hill, and the whole beauty of the mountain range in the sunrise opens up to me. And I realized at that moment, I am a lawyer. I must fight. It didn't turn out that I became a prosecutor in Taos, because in Valencia County, there were a lot of fights to have.
He had a voracious appetite to grow and to improve. He likes trial, he wants to support victims, he cares about justice, and wants to put his energy and ability and intellectual fervor into that idea. And that's what prosecutors need. We're dealing with victims who have been hurt, their people have been killed, and you need a person who is going to really fight for their rights.
There were some great defense lawyers, renowned throughout the state, but I wasn't afraid of challenging or engaging with them, and ultimately I had quite a few victories. It really got me in tune with what our community wants in terms of justice.
He felt comfortable, he had the skill, the intellectual ability to move forward quickly, and boy, I wish I would have had a cadre of people like him in all my offices across the state.
After leaving the DA's office, I knew that I wanted to continue helping victims of wrongdoing, and so it was a natural fit for me to want to do personal injury law. So I decided, well, okay, it's time for me to step up and do this myself. My wife and I had 4 little ones, and she said, "You can do it." She had that confidence in me, and that was reassuring. The main challenge was doing the work to represent my clients, but also to learn the bookkeeping and accounting, how to hire, how to train, how to create systems, and putting it all together. I started lean, made wise financial decisions, and was able to build the right team. I found a wonderful set of lawyers, extremely experienced and talented advocates who also live according to our values, and that has helped us to grow to a greater degree than I ever would have imagined. In terms of our values, we call them the 5 T's. Teamwork, are we helping each other out so that we can help the client out? Talent, we need a skilled and experienced advocate who's going to do a superior job for the client, as well as the staff who help us and back us up. Truth, the center of everything we do has to be truthful, transparent, with integrity, ethical. Tenacity, if you keep doing it hard enough and long enough and well enough, you will prevail. That's what it takes to triumph. That's what we look at when we look to hire somebody. Do they have those 5 values? It's a very deliberate focus. It feels like this has been my role all along. I've been so lucky to have found something that I enjoy doing so much and care about so deeply, and also finding the group of people who do it so well together. So lucky, and I'm so grateful, because I get to help people in some of the most challenging times of their lives. That's a huge responsibility that I take very seriously, and I take a lot of satisfaction and pride in knowing that it's my role, my destiny as a warrior to fight for them.
Bert, thank you for joining us today. Real excited to hear about your business and how you've operated. You've been in business how long?
13 years on my own.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been a lawyer for 25 years.
So one thing I was intrigued by was that in a lot of the classes we show Simon Sinek's film about your why, and it's called The Golden Circle. But it was interesting looking at your site and hearing more about you. You sort of embrace this idea of the 5 T's, which to me is your why. It was kind of like what we used to call the mission, vision, values. But that's also a guide probably for all of your employees to how they should embrace their jobs and provide service to your clients. So can you tell us a little bit about some of that, the culture you've created?
Sure, yeah. So we have focused on making a good culture. To me, culture means just basically the way we do things. And everybody's got a culture, whether they know it or not. And so is it going to be thoughtful, deliberate, productive? I have experienced many law offices, some cultures lacking a little bit in that process and that thoughtfulness. So I've made it a deliberate effort to helping everybody who comes to work there feel good about coming to work. So culture is the way you do things, the way we do things, and that depends on the values. We have framed our values this way, the 5 T's, and that stands for teamwork. It starts with teamwork. Talent. Everybody's got to be really good at their job. Truth. In the center of it all, in the center of that 5, is truth. Honesty, integrity, transparency, and then tenacity, diligence, persistence, continuing on, doing it long enough, hard enough, well enough to finally the 5th T, triumph. And so those are our 5 T's. They're values, but we can't, and we know we can't just talk about them. We can't just say those are our values. We have to be congruent with those values. So we have to live them. And the way you live those values is you hire according to those values. So we ask new candidates, what values they embody the most in certain aspects of their work.
And that was kind of going to be my next question about finding those people. How do you find people that are congruent with that same sort of thinking? Or is it that you bring in people with a certain attitude and then train them? So there's an onboarding.
The most important thing is, do the candidates who are applying have those values and live by those values? We want to see some success in living those values, and we ask them about that. Right. Can they play on a team? Are they really good at what they do? Are they truthful, etc.? So we look for past demonstration and behavior of living according to those values. But at the same time, I think we're pretty good about training on those values and enhancing their potential, but generally they're innate.
One big question I had for you, because my background's marketing, was, boy, I see your ads on TV, and then you've got your billboards or outdoor advertising. And one of the things I think that helps you really sell yourself is the magic of your slogan or your catchphrase, Hurt, Call Bert. Where did that come from, and has that really made a difference for you?
It's made a difference. It's short, it's sweet, it's to the point. Right. It's not too over the top. I've been told, and I think, and I believe, it's just basically this is what we do, and we do it well. It came from it rhymes with my name, and that's what I do. So.
But you also do other marketing beyond the ones I mentioned. Do you have anything with social media that's you focus on in terms of how you get the word out about what you're doing?
Oh yeah, our marketing campaign is pretty robust. We call it a symphony of media. So there's TV and radio and billboard, social media, but our best marketing is through referrals. We get more cases through referrals, and so we concentrate on, the first thing to concentrate on is the work we do. And so if we do a good job for the client, the word spreads, and that's why we've grown. So we've marketed to continue the growth, but it's really dependent on the work that we do. We have the most Google reviews of any personal injury firm in New Mexico, and that's just a fraction of all the positive reviews we get from all our clients.
Oh, and you've been recommended to me through many friends and people that have worked with you, including family. So I get it. Yeah, you've made a big difference for people, which really leads to the other thing. I was involved with Quality New Mexico, where we would talk a lot about, which we talked about earlier, was this Kaizen method of running a business, which is continuous improvement. So I'd be curious, how do you, as the leader of all of that, how do you keep that in the business in terms of daily improving your quality, and then how do you measure that and move it forward for what your operations look like?
Mm-hmm. That could almost be like a sixth value that we have, which is really concentrating on the 5 T's, but Kaizen, or also called, I've heard Kenny or Kanai, constant and never-ending improvement.
Right.
It's just something that's part and parcel of how we do things, and that's part of how we hire as well, is we are always engaged in learning and trying to make the process better. We have for instance, quarterly best practices meetings where we will bring in all of the lawyers and all of the team leads, and we'll fill a conference room at a hotel to talk about, we'll talk about certain processes that we put on the agenda to see if we can do things better. We go through, start, stop, keep conversations. We have a questions and suggestions sheet that we review weekly. We're trying to improve constantly, and I think that is contagious among all of the attorneys and employees, and they know that the status quo is not sufficient.
Right. And I was curious, I just recently spoke to Leadership Sandoval County. We talked about lessons in leadership. It was interesting because we went to some standard lists of Abraham Lincoln and George Washington, and George Washington's lesson in leadership was about getting the work done, not worrying about the prize, which I think was partly why he didn't want to be the king of America. He became the president. So is there somebody in your life or experiences you had that you draw on, other leaders that you've tried to emulate, or you've thought, wow, those were great lessons?
I have several people that I draw from. I would say many, but I guess I would say several that I try to emulate in certain respects. I mean, not in all respects, otherwise I wouldn't be me. Some of them would include, well, I'm a longtime judo player. I started in law school, and our late judo coach, Jesse Ballou, was an extremely wonderful human being, very strong, very giving, very tough. And with respect to his tough love and clear expectations and demands, but also expectations that I and the others around could do better. I try to emulate that. Another person I would look at is my football coach from high school, Tom Ryan.
You were at Albuquerque High School.
That's right. Yeah.
Bulldogs. I know that team. Yeah.
I still meet and talk with him to this day. Actually, I'm going to see him this evening. And he's just very talented and, well, speaking of the values, tenacious and really successful man, and very good, clear and values. And so that is another one. My father is, of course, somebody I look up to with deep admiration and respect. And I will always strive to emulate who he is and how he is.
So part of your role as the leader is to look over the horizon. What do you see for Parnall Law Firm for the future, and what are you hoping to accomplish on a bigger scale?
The day-to-day is to represent clients to the best of our ability. We get a lot of fulfillment out of that, and I hear constantly, knock on wood, that the employees and the attorneys, they enjoy being there because we have built a culture that supports them so that they can engage in the work that we do, which is to fulfill our mission in representing the clients and advocating for them and doing the best job we can for them. That ultimately is what I want to continue doing. Now, big picture of vision on that would be helping more clients, more injured New Mexicans, so that they can get the best representation possible. And so with respect to helping more clients, we have, we have our BHAG, or Big Hairy Audacious Goal.
Right.
It's a very stretch. It's going to be tough. Is it doable? Yes, I think so. And so our vision is, to be able to grow in a measured and steady way that supports the team and the clients and the business, so that we can reach more New Mexicans.
So I'd be curious, because your trade is a lawyer, but you're starting a business, so they're not really different from each other in some ways, but they're also a difference and a challenge in having sort of wear a different hat. To learn about business, where did you get some of your tools and background to know what to do next, getting your documents together and licenses? Where did all that come from?
Right. I went to law school. I was a prosecutor. I was a personal injury lawyer. But then when we started growing, that's when the business began. The way I consider business is really it's team. It's gathering together, hiring other people to help support that mission. And so law school and being a lawyer didn't afford me the opportunity to learn that, how to hire, how to train, how to communicate with, in terms of all the elements of business, the marketing, the management, the accounting, et cetera. And so the main thing that I focused on was hiring and getting the right people on board. And if I've had any success, it's been in recruiting great people.
That's probably through referrals too, I would bet.
Yes, referrals, oh, absolutely. And I've also gone to, since I didn't have that education in business, I've gone to teachers, coaches, books, to learn how to do it. So I've sought counsel, wise counsel, through various business coaches and mentors who have done what I've done.
I was going to say, most of the successful people I've met in life have adopted sort of a policy, or whatever you want to call it, of continuous learning, so that they're always learning. It's like there's always the next thing to learn about, the next step. So that sounds like what you're talking about.
Right.
And, just a quick question I used to love to ask my guest speakers in my classes is, if Moji Cinema had a time machine next door and we could take you back to when you were 20 years old in a college class, or just 20 in your early beginnings, what would you say, if you could meet yourself, what would you say to yourself about some challenges you're going to overcome, or some lessons learned that you would impart on yourself? Anything outstanding there that would be, you'd want to share with yourself?
That's a nice question to consider, because I will often think about, I have to learn more, and I don't feel like I'm in a position to give my younger self that kind of advice, but I think I can try.
Okay.
So generally, I don't have a whole lot of advice, because, while I don't say I don't have regrets, but I think it's been a good journey. I've learned a lot along the way. So if I could have learned it a little bit earlier, I would have told my younger self, smile more, love better, read more. Read as much as you can.
Right.
And so, which is basically learn more and continue to do what we're already doing.
Right.
But, you know, in terms of the business, I would say, and I mentioned this earlier, I've learned how to hire. Knock on wood, it's always a challenging process, but focus on that a little earlier and have a thoughtful, systematic process in place from the get-go.
Well, Bert, it's a pleasure meeting you today and hearing about your business practices. And you're a big hero in our family because you've been a big help to my mother-in-law and some other folks. So just a real pleasure to meet you in person. And I'm sure the lessons learned that you talked about will be shared with others to create other businesses like yours.
It's a great pleasure to meet and talk with you, Stacy.
Yeah,
I've heard a lot about you for a long time. And of course, I really enjoyed representing and getting to know your mother-in-law.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.